What's up guys, Excalibur here and welcome back to Star Ocean Anamnesis. So today, we're going to be taking a look at Best Daughteru, I think. Maybe. I don't know. Regardless, let's get started. Relia is a very versatile healer who you can slot into both physical and caster parties. Her first talent, Golden Intentions, increases standing AP recovery speed by 50% at 100% HP for the entire party. This one only really applies to Relia and every other caster type ally that's in the party, because for them it's obviously a lot more efficient to stand still to recover AP instead of use their normals to recover AP. So for them, an extra 50% when they're sitting at 100% HP is incredibly good. And then her second talent, a Sister's Prayer, recovers 5% HP every 3 seconds for everyone in the party. This one kind of works together with her first talent because it keeps everybody at full health without needing to heal, and they can get the AP recovery speed. But aside from that, other characters also have some HP based talents, like the Nier characters in particular, and you can use this talent to keep them at full health without having to spend some AP on healing. Very nice. Her third talent, Forehead Symbology, nullifies the AP recovery rate reduction field and movement rate reduction fields for herself and every ally using short-range weaponry. This one is quite situational because you need a boss that can actually cast these fields, like Alma, for it to actually become useful. But if you do have a boss like that, it's actually really good. And then her last talent, Dreams of the Future, reduces Relia's own symbol invoking time by 50%. And this one's obviously very nice for speeding up her healing, speeding up her buffing, so very welcome. And now moving on to her battle skills. First up we have Enraging Fairy Light. Recover some of all allies' HP and increase their attack by 20% for 15 seconds. It also costs 60 AP, and the healing is determined by multiplying it by 230%. This attack is incredibly nice because it's a heal combined with a buff. So as long as Relia is in a physical party, she can heal everybody, give them their buff, and then everybody can do damage. Then up next we have Radiant Lancer. Unleash myriad lances of light. Its power is determined by multiplying it by 300%. It does 8 hits, has a light element, and it costs 27 AP. This is just your standard Radiant Lancer attack. It doesn't really do much for Relia because she has another attack that's kind of better in every way, and she only has 3 attack slots, so yeah, I don't really recommend using this. And then up next we have Brute Enlightenment. For all allies, raise their int by 25% and lower their attack damage taken by 15%, all for 20 seconds, and it costs 65 AP. This is the attack that makes Relia so good in caster parties. A 25% increase to int is huge, and I guess it also kind of works in physical parties if you've got a defender running around, because the attack damage taken reduction is also pretty good for them. So there you go. And then lastly we have Aurora Rings. Manifest many pillars of light beneath your foe. Its power is determined by multiplying it by 460%. Does 5 hits, costs 35 AP, and it has a light element. And this is the attack that's kind of better than Radiant Lancer in every way. It's got better rush gain, bigger AoE, and it just hits enemies more reliable. And considering that really as a healer you're not really expecting her to do damage, and AP cost also doesn't really matter that much, so yeah, I definitely recommend using this. And then we have her Rush, Freeze Time. Stop the flow of time. Its power is determined by multiplying it by 2500%. It has an ice element, and as a post-rush buff, it increases single target damage by 30% and recover 15% HP every 3 seconds for the entire party for 20 seconds. Now, this rush itself is incredibly weak, or I shouldn't call it incredibly weak. It's certainly weaker than most of the other rushes that we have, so definitely use this at the start of the chain. But that post-rush buff is amazing. It makes Relia's HP regen better than it already is, and that single target damage plus 30% makes everybody do way more damage. It kind of allows Relia to lay off on the healing a bit and be more focused on the buffing, and that's incredibly nice. So for weapons, as always, healers don't really have that much to choose from, but we did get a free weapon during Christmas, the Christmas Staff, which increases your defense by 10% and also gives you anti-flinch casting, which, in case you don't know what that does, it basically means that you can't flinch while you're casting, and there are certain characters that can give this effect party-wide, like Fiore, but if she's not in your party, then you always have the staff to fall back on. Overall, I'd say as a free weapon, that anti-flinch casting is definitely worth it. But if you're looking for a gacha weapon, we have the Dreaming Bear, which got introduced together with Relia. Has a good int stat, which doesn't really matter for Relia, but it also increases HP by 20%. It gives you an 80% chance of surviving a lethal attack at 20% HP or more, and it also reduces AP costs by 10%, which could come in handy, maybe. Regardless, it gives Relia a bit more bulk, and it allows her to do her job as a healer a lot better. And I guess I should also mention the Santa Bunny Rod, which increases light damage dealt by 40%. It also gives you an 80% guts, and it gives you anti-flinch casting at limit break 5. This one is a bit more offensively based than the Dreaming Bear. If you feel like running an offensive Relia, which I really don't recommend, then I guess you could use this. Or if you don't have the Dreaming Bear, but you do have the Santa Bunny Rod, then this is a pretty decent alternative. And as for accessories, you want to choose one that gives you some more survivability. So assuming that you're running Guts on your weapon, you could go with the Protection Armlet 4, which reduces damage taken by 10%. Really good for Relia. And speaking of the Protection Armlet 4, if you're going to run this, you should keep an eye out for the Moglin plushie, which appears during the Final Fantasy Brave Exvius collab, which people are speculating that's going to be the next event. That thing reduces damage taken by 10%, and it gives you a 40% guts. So just in case you aren't running guts on your weapon, you have it on your accessory. I'm fairly certain the battle skill setup should be kind of obvious, considering Relia doesn't really have much room for experimentation. First up we have Aurora Rings, because it's really good at gaining rush. Then up next we have Brute Enlightenment, because she needs the buff. And Raging Fairy Light is also up next because you need the heal, and the buff on there is also really nice. And Relia, being the healer that she is, doesn't really have any combos, but there is one particular one that you can do, which goes as follows: a normal attack into either Brute Enlightenment or Enraging Fairy Light, depending on which buff you're trying to apply, and then finishing up with Aurora Rings. You could also skip the normal attack at the start, just in case you don't want to wait for the animation to come out, and you're trying to apply the buff as quickly as possible, because the cancel bonus doesn't really matter for Relia, considering that you're not really going to do any damage with her anyway. But I should also mention Aurora Rings over here. There is another combo that you can do, and that is called Spam Aurora Rings, because you can use this to build your rush really quickly. If you're not trying to buff or heal, then it's certainly a good idea to use a normal attack into as many Aurora Rings as you can. And now for the good stuff. This time I made a party that, for some reason, I haven't made before. So, first of all, I recommend you run 2B alongside Relia. 2B can buff attack for the entire party by 25% or 45% for each ally that's sitting at 100% HP. Post-rush, she can buff elemental damage by 55% for herself and 50% for the entire party, and she also gives AP recovery on normals. Relia's Enraging Fairy Light attack buff stacks with all of 2B's attack buffs, so that's pretty amazing, but Relia's HP regen also allows 2B to give the full 45% attack buff to every ally, as long as they stay at full health, which shouldn't be too difficult, as long as Relia is running around. And then up next we're running A2, of course. She can buff single target damage for the entire party by 15% or 25% for every ally that's sitting at 100% HP. Do you see the theme here? She can also do a lot of damage, and she also buffs HP by 20%. So the same things that I said about 2B apply to A2 as well. Relia can buff with her Enraging Fairy Light, and she can keep everybody at full health with her heal. Her HP regen, which gives everybody a full 25% single target damage buff, and Relia does override that with her post-rush buff, but that's only post-rush, so aside from that, it's just a 25% single target damage buff for the entire match, which is really good. And then lastly, we're running Emerson. Oh, wait, excuse me, Emerson? We're running 9S. He buffs damage for the entire party by 30% or 40% if you're sitting at 100% HP. He also increases attack damage post-rush for the entire party by 30%. He also gives everybody an HP recovery post-rush, but Relia can take care of that. And he also drastically increases everybody's mobility through increasing their movement speed, reducing their AP cost during evasions, and he is also incredibly fast himself. All three Nier characters cover each other's weaknesses incredibly well. The only fault in their teamwork is that they cannot keep themselves at full health aside from 9S's Rush, and that's where Relia comes in with her HP recovery. So these four are incredibly good together, and if you've got them, that should make for a very good party for months to come. So in short, Relia can work in both physical and caster parties because of the buffs that she has access to. Even though you're only going to be running 3 offensive characters, those buffs can definitely make their damage skyrocket, as well as some of Relia's other talents too, as invisible as they may be, like the standing AP recovery and the HP regen. As long as you're playing in a competent party, that passive HP regen might be the only healing that you have to do, which leaves more room for you to keep all the buffs up, and like we were talking about with the Nier party previously, they can make great use of that HP regen. I would say Relia is definitely a great addition to our roster of healers. I said Relia's name so often during that I can't even pronounce her name properly anymore. Relia. Regardless, I was also talking about the, the Moglin plushie, I think, during the accessory thing, and that gets introduced during the Final Fantasy Brave Exvius collab, which people are speculating that might take place tomorrow with the next update, so get ready for that, and we're getting some new characters with that too. One free character in particular, and he's actually really good, or kind of good for a free character. Not kind of good for a free character, he's incredible for a free character, kind of good as a normal character. Regardless, hope this was helpful, and I guess I'll see you all next time. Peace!